Tuesday, December 5th, 2023 meeting of the Monmouth City Council to order. Ask Phyllis to record the meeting and give the roll call, please.
Councillor Belts?
Here.
Councillor Carey?
Here.
Councillor Lopez?
Present.
Councillor McKeel is excused. Councillor Oberst?
Here.
Councillor Salinas Oliveros?
Here.
Mayor Coons?
I am present. And Councillor Belts, could you lead us in the flag salute, please?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we do have one thing, our consent calendar tonight, and that is approval of the minutes of our meeting of November 21st. And I would accept any offers of additions, corrections, or a motion to approve as is.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Oberst for the motion and Councillor Belts for the second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And seeing none opposed, we will move on to public comments. And I don't see anyone here tonight for general public comment. Do we have anything submitted, Phyllis, online?
We did not, Mayor Coons.
Great, thank you. That moves us to our business agenda. We have a couple of great meetings tonight with some of our volunteer boards and commissions. I see we have some of those folks in the room. We'll start off with our Historic Commission, which is for the able guidance of our Community and Economic Development Director, Ann Duffner. So,
Hi.
Ann, we've got a
Yeah.
couple of members here tonight. Great.
Good evening. And we do. Phyllis, could you share the screen with me? We do have a couple of slides prepared. We'll do our introductions here.
Where are you? Oh,
I'm here.
Just
I'm
viewing
Senior Center.
the testimony.
hold
For
on.
the viewing testimony table.
Yes. There.
And Suzanne, you'll introduce who's with you.
Yeah, we
Great. Although they need.
okay. Well, great. I will turn it over to our chair, Nita Wilson.
Oh, well, good evening and thank you for inviting us. And do I need to read this off?
Oh, we were just going to introduce the
I was going
members
to
of the
say,
Historic Commission.
this is Ron Woodruff. And I don't think Jim is here, is he?
Nope.
And Amy, Beth,
Oh, they're not here.
just Lori
Yeah.
is here. There's Lori. Okay. And I'm going to turn the rest of the meeting over to Ron because he's our better speaker.
Suzanne's going to start. Maybe.
Well, with
Really? We didn't practice this. Great. Yeah, but we were just going to run through some of the activities that the Historic Commission has been working on for the last year. They've been very active. So happy to report some of those highlights to you. We have a couple of slides that just kind of illustrate those events and activities. So the first one is the May is Historic Preservation Month nationally. So we all celebrate that as Historic Commissions. And Ron actually helped us quite a bit with this year's activity with the a presentation that was on architectural influences in historical buildings.
I'll say a moment about that.
Yeah, did you want to share?
I did a historical survey of late 19th century building styles, and it was focusing on Henry Hobson Richardson. And he was influenced by the arts and crafts movement by Henry Morris in England. And the reason that's important was that his practice of about 20 years influenced every major building in every big city from the late 19th century.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we get you to talk in
Oh, yeah.
for the recording?
I did a a survey of an architect who was very prominent in the East Coast, and his brief practice of only 20 years influenced every major building, institutional building in the United States from the late 19th century all the way up through the 20s. And so the reason that's important is we have a lot of buildings in that example in this city, Silverton, Salem, up and down the valley, that shared some of the same attributes. So I wanted to help people understand what to look for when they would see these buildings, especially if you even go to Port Townsend, it's full of that stuff. Well, it's responsible for one man, which is kind of a big deal. So I did a survey of building types, mainly reflecting this person's talent. So that was kind of our review for that time.
Apparently we needed more than one microphone here. So yeah, that's the benefit of having an architect serve on your historic commission, to be able to share their talents with the community. So it was really fun. After the presentation that Saturday, we took the guests out on a walk of the downtown and showed them some of the examples of the architectural styles that Ron had highlighted in his presentation. So yay, and it didn't rain that day. Another big project that the Historic Commission worked on over the past year was actually contracting with an architect firm that specializes in historic buildings. And one of the buildings that have kind of been on our watch list for most endangered in terms of the potential for losing it, because it really hasn't gone through much maintenance. It's not really an active use of it. Is the old Evangelical Church. So that's the church on the corner of Jackson and Monmouth Avenue South, still owned by the church. So it's not one that is publicly owned, but this preservation plan went through and did a nice detailed review of the building space and talked about kind of the triage of improvements needed to shore it up, and then also did some visioning of how that building could be reused, because we know that an occupied building is the safest way to preserve buildings, is to have active uses in those that are contributing to the maintenance of them. So while the results of that study have not quite yet come to fruition, I think it planted the seed, and it certainly has started some conversations in our community of what's possible there. So that was a fun one to work on. We also did a much needed update of our walking tour brochure. So we have 3 historic walks: the downtown, the university, and the East Main Street District. This was a great partnership with the WU Art Department. One of the professors lined us up with a very excellent student who we contracted with and were able to pay through an internship for her services to give us a refresh of the brochure and kind of update the look of it and put a better map in there. So that was a fun little project, and find some older pictures of some of the historic buildings that we hadn't used in the past. So
And we're proud of that brochure.
yes, although we did find one typo after we printed it, so waiting for the next, of course. A number of times we looked at that, but we'll get that fixed in the revised one. And it also led to doing an online walking tour app, a Pocket app that is internationally actually used. So that's also available in a digital version as well for the folks that don't do the paper ones. And we use that as a tool to hand out to folks that are guests at like Western Oregon University conferences, and they're looking for something to do in their downtime. So kind of as a tourism asset as well for our community. And then, yay, there's a lot of familiar faces in these photos. This was a really fun event. This was, I think, our fourth year of doing History and Mystery. And thank you to the counselors that participated in this. Ron was an actor as well, or storyteller as well. So we had the History and Mystery event, talked about some of the historical stories of Monmouth in October. So that kind of had a little bit of some of the darker parts of history that came to light, but just a great community event. It helped that it was a really nice night that night, so it brought a lot of people out. And we actually were able to pull a number of Western Oregon University students to come in. That was their first week of getting moved in classes, so that was great to see them engaged in the community. And a lot of folks Emily had commented, the manager of Mom Mary's Bed and Breakfast, that she had just a ton of people. They'd opened up their Hal House for visits for people to go through and tour it. And she said that a lot of people come through. And so it was great to see that building utilized, and hope to do that event again. Yeah.
I was the one that gave the train history. It was real interesting because I worked on that for about 6 lectures. And the last 2 lectures, I started to improvise and I started to get the audience involved. I started asking them about, well, do you know who built the railway? It was immigrants. You know which ones? No, what? Why? And then why is that? And then we talked about how the industrial complex of the railway was really developing the industrial might of America. Then I mentioned a little bit about Henry Ford. You know, of course, that's not railway, but it's transportation. So I was trying to give people a little bit of an update of why was that important. You know, yeah, they're fun to look at, but they had a major part in really developing our industrial might, which, you know, we used through a couple of wars, you know, as a result. So the transportation and railway development is really important in our history, and I wanted to give people a little better overview in terms of, you know, what that was like. So that was kind of fun to, at the end, I started adding more to my, you know, historical context. So it was kind of fun.
Yeah, these stories have a way of kind of evolving, I think, over the night. But fun night, and it was also great. We had sign language interpreters from WU that came in, was at the mayor's station where we were talking about one of Monmouth's early deaf residents. So it was nice to have that as well. So what's next? So we're not going to rest, no rest for the weary. We're going to keep do some strategic planning in January. We've talked about some new murals. There was the big train mural that was generated a lot of excitement and interest. And so I think there's still some interest in the commission on
Planning on painting the town.
with the help of the Arts and Culture Commission. You know, we need to coordinate with that's overlap there. And then also looking at some more historic signage that's kind of comes from the downtown plan, just in terms of being able to tell our story a little bit more through some wayfinding and signage, and potentially looking at our archaeological procedures for development in terms of making sure if items are discovered inadvertently during development that we have clear plans and policies in place. And so through that, trying to also build our relationships with the tribe, building that relationship as well. So then there's a lot of good resources through our state partner, the State Historic Preservation Office, with those types of activities. So stay tuned for more great work to come from the commission. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve with them as their staff liaison. So any last comments or words? All right, well, thank you. Oh, questions for us?
Go ahead.
What can we do to help?
Should be an easy question. Money, no. Yeah, no, sorry. Oh, well, here, I'll let you, yeah.
We had a discussion of having a sculpture that is somehow related to the history of this city. And I don't know how literal it needs to be or non-literal. However, they can be expensive, and, you know, could almost be in the new city hall area or something that's, because a lot of cities have sculptures that are related to their history, and there are a lot of examples of that. We were going to try to maybe see what some examples were and try to work it backwards of, okay, well, what are the costs? We know they're expensive. However, it may be worth trying to raise some money. Could be really cool. So that was something we briefly talked about. And-
Arts and Culture Commissions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, we can do
That was
some
the
good
thing,
collaboration.
the Arts and Culture.
Maybe a
Get together with Arts and Culture.
Talk about,
Yeah, so, and I went to one of the Arts and Culture Commission meetings recently, just because there's some interest and excitement, I think, around those potential projects. And so having some kind of a joint meeting between both commissions is something that I think would be extremely beneficial, so that we're all working together and helping to get good projects done in the community without stepping on any toes or rules of who does what. So I think, thank you for that question, Councilor Belts. some of the areas, one, I think just continuing helping support those historic events when we have them. So it's just awesome. You bring a lot of energy, enthusiasm that people want to come down and see you at things like History and Mystery. So thank you for that. And then I think along those lines that are talking about building tribal relations, I think there's some opportunity for, from what I've kind of heard from other jurisdictions, to have that tribal government to city council kind of conversations level, to kind of open those doors of some of those relationships. So not exactly sure like how and when the timing, but I think that would be a great way to build on that relationship and consistent with some of the council goals as well. So yeah, thanks.
Counselor Carey?
Have you done any work with Restore Oregon?
So I'm aware of them, and yeah, I mean, they have resources. We have not directly done any. I know they're active with the historic tax credits, and they can share examples, but did you have like specific ways of collaborating in mind with them, or just that they're
One of the
resources?
things they do is they have criteria, and I'm just barely familiar with them.
We haven't had a question yet for them.
Yeah, well, what is their criteria for accepting one of our facilities, if we have one, on what I think they call it the most endangered species, or the endangered buildings, something, I don't recall exactly that. I'm familiar with their work with the Gates High School,
Mhm.
Gates, Oregon. And they're doing a lot of things, assisting with fundraising, grant applications for that. And as a result, the Gates School has raised, a lot of money in a small community. So I don't know that it would work for us, but it is a large organization that is interested in historic preservation, focusing on, buildings and, the type that you're referencing. So it may be worth a look.
When the Oregon Main Street Convention was here a couple of months ago, I met one of the staff personnel from Restore Oregon.
Mm.
And there's a couple opportunities. One is I'm working with the Requiel Grange and trying to restore that building. We might be able to use their network for some possible connections with fundraising that we're not aware of. Conversely, they could probably help us with some of our projects when and if we find a project that needs some guidance and some capitalization, so to speak. So also, I'd like to help them even raise money. I belong to a large national car club, and one of my thoughts was trying to have an event that could help benefit them and to raise money for their organization. So I'm a little bit plugged in and have a
Yeah,
concern for that as well.
it's worth looking at.
Anything else for the Historic Commission?
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you so
coming.
much.
Thank
Good
you
work.
for being here.
Thank you very
Great
much.
work.
Get better all the time. And next up, our Planning Commission. So Suzanne gets to stay.
Right. Hello, Council. It's nice to be meeting again. And Suzanne has very thankfully helped us compile some of the things we've been doing since it's been a fairly busy year. We're currently at 8 out of our 9 members. We just had one person retire, I suppose, from our group. So we have an opening at the moment. We also have a new city planner working with us, Carter, who I think ran his first meeting without Suzanne last month and it went wonderfully. So things are looking great. And so on sort of the day-to-day duties of planning, we went through quite a few different applications this year, including the Montessori school expansion, who just had the ribbon cutting this weekend, some expansion of the Rosemead Industrial Park development. It's also been nice to see some things come through that we've worked on in previous years, like the City Hall, of course, and Ron Wilson Center is looking pretty close to done, which looks wonderful. Um, when we're not doing our day-to-days, we actually had our very running code assistance project completed and adopted. And I'm excited to see how that reshapes the development going forward in town. We also completed the housing production strategy, which was sort of the second phase after our housing needs analysis several years ago. And it was nice to get that document completed. And then next year, we have already talked as a commission about the upcoming transportation system plan update that Russ is leading. We haven't had an update since 2009, so we are definitely due. And a natural hazard mitigation plan update, which is also underway. There was public comment feedback on that this fall. And then we just got a grant awarded for an economic opportunity analysis, which I'm looking forward to learning more about. Staff has been really great at when they mention things are coming up and we say, oh, can we get a preview on that? And last couple of meetings over the last few months, they've brought us things that weren't originally on the schedule, and that's been much appreciated so that we can know what we're going to be seeing several months on. That's where we're at. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You think that'll keep you busy, or do you think it's
That's a
there are
lot.
some other things we can come up with, maybe for them?
Well, I think we've skipped fewer meetings this year than we have in past years. That's an indication.
Any questions of Chair Stephen Howard or the Planning Commission?
Thank you for all your work. I'm excited to see the economic opportunities analysis. That's going to be interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Keep going, y'all. Doing good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep, we'll try and find you another new member as well to get going. All right, we have one other business agenda item, and that is a second reading and adoption of the issue we discussed last meeting, which was some changes, proposed amendments to our city code regarding public contracting. This is to come in line with changes to state law, allowing us to do a higher dollar value, and rightfully so, since almost nothing goes for $5,000 anymore, or whatever. I will turn this over to Christy Worster to remind us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. In your packet, you'll see a staff report that highlights the primary changes to the ordinance, which includes a change to the contracts for goods and services of $25,000 or less. Those can now be made in any manner deemed practical or convenient. And so that is an increase to that $25,000 threshold. With regard to contracts and services between $25,000 and $250,000, those would be made by informal procedure as outlined in our code, which is 3 quotes or proposals would be required. And then finally, the public improvement in contracts under $25,000 can be awarded without competitive bids. And this ordinance would bring us into alignment with the state law, and that really helps staff alleviate any discrepancies in what's noted in the model rule contracting rules versus our own. And so we like to keep those current, and this ordinance would make that happen. And so we're asking for your approval of the second reading tonight.
Any questions come up since last time? Otherwise, there is a proposed motion in your packet.
I just have if you could clarify the difference between public improvement contracts and goods and services. I mean, it seems the services would fall into the public improvement things often, but yet it's different in both the staff report and in the
Sure.
ordinances.
Yeah, under state law, a public improvement contract is basically a construction contract.
Okay.
Yeah. it has a specific definition.
So the goods and services are in service of building something versus goods and services for other activities. Is how I always describe it. Counselor Oberst.
So as I read the paragraph towards the bottom of the staff report alternatives, it basically seems to say to me that if we don't adopt this, it's going to happen anyway because we follow the model code.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of bookkeeping, at which point I would move second reading and adoption of ordinance 1411, an ordinance amending portions from the city code, section 3.20.110 relating to public contracts.
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Oberst. Motion, we'll give the second to Counselor Lopez. Any other questions? We'll have Phyllis call the roll, please.
Counselor Lopez,
Aye.
Counselor Oberst,
Aye.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros,
Aye.
Counselor Belts.
Aye.
Counselor Carey.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to our work session. And the third in a series of awesome new learning for us about all the services we provide to our community. And this is our total maximum daily load. I can't wait. Public Works Director, Russ Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'm going to get the PowerPoint brought up here. So
Oh, good.
just a second, but I will start off by saying tonight is an appropriate night to be talking about stormwater and
Yes.
and then also identify that 3 years ago, council adopted a new stormwater utility. And one of the components of why we did that was to ensure that we could keep pace with regulatory requirements as they were coming at us. And so tonight we've got a presentation. I'll turn it over to Elizabeth Sagmiller, who's our consultant on stormwater, specifically our TMDL implementation plan. But there's a lot that we have been adding to our workload, and having the stormwater utility in place has been very effective and helpful to that end. I had to put on my side and make sure I'm seeing this correctly. There we go. But I got to. Phyllis, do you need to give us the share function?
You still have it.
And then on the go-to meeting.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Accept. All right. So Elizabeth Sagmiller is our consultant on TMDL. She was the supervisor in both, or she worked in the City of Salem's stormwater department. I'm not exactly sure what her role was with the City of Salem, but retired from the City of Kaiser as the supervisor in their stormwater department. So she's got lots of experience on the subject matter. And I will turn over the TMDL implementation plan program to her.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, thanks for having me tonight. I fear that some of the earlier presentations might have been a little more interesting than mine, but we're going to go with it. So just by way of background, again, what we're doing is we're dusting off the TMDL implementation plan. And so sort of be reminding you of what those things are and just giving you a glimpse into where the city will need to go. So TMDL, as the slide says and was in your packet, it describes the amount of a pollutant that a waterway can receive and not exceed water quality standards. And in this case, what we're talking about, or what initiated changes in your program, were had to do with mercury. And mercury, you remember, is a toxic element that is retained in the fat of fish, basically. And so it makes fish consumption a critical issue in the Willamette Basin. Your implementation plan is just the document that says what the city of Monmouth is going to do to address their contribution. This is just refresher stuff. Willamette Basin, this whole program started in 2006. Mercury, bacteria, and temperature are your 3 issues of concern. I put one of the administrative rules on here that tells you where you can find that regulation. And then Monmouth revised their implementation plan in 2023 to meet the new requirements of the Mercury TMDL. And so they're all up to date and ready to roll. DEQ has approved that plan. I just wanted to pull in the legal drivers here. DEQ is playing a little differently than they have in the past with this program. They, in the past, were pretty hands-off, and they have changed that. And now they're actively enforcing on DMAs, which Monmouth is, a designated management agency. So this little snippet at the bottom of the slide, if you didn't read that, you might want to read that over at some point when you go back through these. This was taken from an email that was sent to the new DMAs, and DEQ makes themselves very clear in this email what they'll do. Okay, enough of the bad stuff. Stormwater is happening even as we speak. This is just a little reminder that stormwater is the interaction between precipitation and impervious surfaces. So the EPA, in all their wisdom, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, has stated that as long as permittees and TMDL DMAs, sorry about the acronyms, as long as they address 6 minimum control measures, then basically they're doing what they should be doing to alleviate water pollution in local waterways. And those are the 6 minimum control measures, which makes sense. Public education, public involvement is what we're doing right now. And you'll probably hear a little bit more in the future as the city, the Public Works Department will be keeping you up to speed on what's going on. So I think you got a copy of the matrix. And again, I'm not going to go through all of this. But I wanted to make sure that you understand how to read that document. So next slide. So if I can see that document, I got it. So this is just a page from the matrix in your TMDL implementation plan. And let's go with just the first line across, or the second blank line that says ID2. And so ID2 is just an identifier for the best management practice. You don't need to worry about it. You have to say what you're addressing, what is your strategy to fix it, how you're going to pay for it, what your end goal is, and what your timeline is. And then that column marked milestone just tells you what you're going to do for the year. So what you're seeing is a page from your 23-24 matrix. And I've given you an example in the status column in the information in red there. When I do an annual report and say how you guys are doing, that status report or the status column is all filled in with the things that you've done. So, yeah, that's it. So
It's staff's marching orders is how I look at it.
Yes.
It's our work plan for the next 5 years. And each year we report on our progress. It's a multi-page list, similar to what was there.
to me, it's the neatest thing and puzzle in the world, but to a lot of people, I know this is like crazy. So in choosing best management practices, you started out with a set and we've added to that. And I just wanted to let you know where these come from. So your best management practices are designed to meet regulations, ones that make sense for Monmouth. We're not going to ask you to do something that doesn't make sense for the community. BMPs that are effective and again, implementable. So the primary tasks for 2024 is to develop a draft or final illicit discharge ordinance. That ordinance is basically the foundation for your stormwater program, and it will be the catalyst for other ordinances that are required through this program. That ordinance has to have an enforcement response plan. We'll start development of the required construction site runoff ordinance and then continue with regular activities. So don't want to like do a deep dive into illicit discharge because it really is a lot. But an illicit discharge is any discharge, any runoff to the stormwater system that is not composed entirely of stormwater. So we think about things like, oh, okay, there's a cigarette, but it's all the things, the chemicals and oils and grease, things like that that you can't see, all illicit discharges. And so the ordinance is basically there to prohibit non-stormwater discharges. Can the city do that? Can you enforce that? Because it's everything. No, but you have to have that ordinance in place in order to address the runoff that you can. Program components, geographic information system program, spill response plan, routine training every year, and a written enforcement response plan. That response plan is a handy tool because it will tell staff, okay, if there is an offender, we go out the first time and we give him some educational material and we say, don't do this. But he does it again, and then we're going to go out and we're going to say, no, I got to write you up. And the third time, maybe you send him a letter. So there are definite steps.
How are we doing?
Hello?
Yep.
That's good. Okay. So these are just some components that will be in the ordinance. And that isn't language that we'll be recreating. There are other cities that are going through this at the same time. And so we'll be taking the best and leaving the worst. And then again, we're just here to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask any questions. We'll periodically give you updates, let you know about any changes to the regulations and other items that might be of note. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Any questions?
Counselor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for the work that goes into this plan. As an individual that spends a significant amount of time in our rivers, I fly fish.
Oh, wonderful.
And we have a number of other individuals here tonight that engage in the natural beauty of our area. Similarly, I'm thankful that there are individuals like yourself helping guide us to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to take care of these amazing natural resources that surround us.
Thank you so much. That's really nice.
Yeah, I'm curious about how we line up to other municipalities of our size. I recognize that there's a lot of things that are just dictated. This is what you must do. This is what you will do. But there's a lot of gray area. We're listening to you tonight. It seemed that there was a lot of gray area, a lot of customizable aspects to a community response to address how we handle stormwater. How do we compare? And are there areas that we may be able to create efficiencies or easy wins, right, that we could make?
You're doing great. I think that the problem that most municipalities have is that they view that matrix as a checkoff list instead of viewing it as something that needs to be tweaked a little bit from year to year. And that's where I come in. That's where this sitting back and looking at it and say, oh, well, this might work at this time and this time. And then also having a good working relationship with DEQ, it helps a lot. But for this side of the river, I'm just getting to know folks over here through the last couple of years. And you're doing great. And it's a pleasure to work for this community, to work with this community.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
And efficiencies, it's, as I said, if the implementation plan can be manipulated within certain guidelines every year. So if there's an area that's not working so much, if we need to replace it with something else, we have the ability to do that, but we want to be thoughtful about what those replacements are.
Counselor Oberst.
So when I think about illicit discharge, and I'm thinking that that's mostly targeted at construction sites and industrial users, and I think about watching the soap suds as the neighbor washes their car go drifting down the street. And I'm assuming we're not going to enforce on people who wash their cars, but we might educate them.
Right.
And have that be how we remediate that, or I think people quit just dumping things down storm sewers mostly. No, I said no.
I think there's definitely a general awareness, but it still happens.
Like, do we have people dumping motor oil down the storm sewer, for example?
I'll just say that it still happens.
I don't, you have to have the language in the ordinance that says that washing the car is prohibited. And I think it says warm water in this case. But again, you said it, you educate those people. But the guy that's washing his lawnmower out over the catch basin on the street. And the first time you say, do better, here's some information. And then you go by the next week and he's doing the same thing. And so it's there for those people that are problematic.
Thank you.
Counselor Carey.
I think one of the things that we're going to need to focus on on all of this is to get out in front of the message before we roll an ordinance out. People are they're gonna high grade and cherry pick what they want and gripe about it. So we'll need to be able to deal with the reference that Councilor Oberst made relative to, the car wash, power washing your driveway to get the moss off it. That is not, would be an illicit dump in effect. So we need to have some education. We need to be out in front of that and explain why that's a deal and how we're gonna enforce it, because there'll be those that'll say, yeah, they're gonna come take your car away.
Right.
If you're watching it,
Yeah. So one of the things that we'll do is make sure that we have a lot of resource information to say, oh, if you're, power washing your driveway, here's how you can do it in a water quality minded manner, because this is actually, so just having those resources, but it takes a little while to build those. So staff is working on it.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to point out is that even before we go out and start pointing the finger at other folks in the community, we're actually dealing with our own BMP. It's our own best management practices with in-house, how we handle a water leak and clean up on the street, those kind of things. So we're first going to address our own practices by establishing BMPs and educating our own staff before we even go out and start pointing the finger or looking outside. But we'll still be working on developing these ordinances, public education.
I think if you could get with like the university, get them on side so they're aware, and you get all the sort of larger players that are understanding and compliant. It will be easier for those that perhaps don't have the opportunity to have violations as frequently as I do. Now, but the other more, and to this point, and it's sort of a substantive question that I have, that you identified the control measures, and there are 6 of those. Are those specific to Monmouth, or are those generally specific?
It would
Generally
specific to designated management agencies and permittees, which would be municipalities like Salem and Kaiser and Portland and things like that. So anybody that's regulating, has to regulate stormwater, needs to address those control measures.
Okay, they all seem to fit nicely, but I'm having a hard time juxtaposing those to our targets, which are mercury, bacteria, and temperature. I don't know what the sources of mercury are, but we got a couple bullets here that are concerned with construction sites.
Right.
Which
So
would be
mercury,
sediment, it seems.
mercury binds to soil particles. And so runoff that's carrying soil particles is deposited to streams and waterways. And that's how you end up with mercury in fish, because, fish suck on those little pieces of dirt.
Yeah.
And there is, it's like a fact sheet or an overview of mercury on the website right now. And they'll have one for bacteria and for temperature as well. Mercury is air deposited primarily. But DEQ says that you're responsible for the runoff and therefore mercury is your issue. Right or wrong, it is what it is.
Sure.
But yeah, so you basically come up with messages that say, did you know if you, I'm going to talk temperature here for just a second, but if you make sure that you keep your trees and native plants and species, or native plants, their roots will hold the bank in place. And if you're allowing erosion, then you're violating. So what do? Well, you can go to this nursery and you might have a tree event, or you get your watershed council to come out and take some volunteers out, use the school as a great example. We'll definitely want to partner with them. So it's providing resources and getting the word out there in a positive way, because people want a beautiful, beautiful streams and they want clean communities.
And we're all in agreement, and I think we're all on side with this conceptually. I'm wondering if we don't seem to do it, and we're not treating stormwater right now, and we don't want to.
The two biggest bangs for the buck for mercury and stormwater is one, keeping sediment where it's at. So, and typically when we look at that, we're looking at a construction site. Let's keep that sediment on the construction site, keep it from getting into the road, which then gets it into the storm system, or keep it from running off site without trying to get as much of that sediment out of it. So construction sites are going to be one of our big areas that we're going to place focus. Our own BMPs. We've got water leaks, we've got cleanup, so even within our own operations, we'll be looking for ways to do that. And so, that's kind of the big target that we'll be looking at when we're talking about mercury specific. Keep it where it is. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Keep it where it is.
Good.
Yes, Councilor Salinas Oliveros.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a couple things. One, thank you so much about talking about resources, because the first thing I thought about was, okay, teach me. Teach me how to do this better. How, what can I do to improve, and how can I share that message? So, and I can see, Sabra helping with that, and some how-to videos and some information, just because it's quick. And because that's going to be the first question is, well, then what do I do if I don't use? So I appreciate that a lot. And then when you're talking about the control measures, I'm assuming that whether it's clearly or directly implemented, I'm thinking this is in probably your matrix that you were showing, some of the control measures
Yes.
embedded in there.
Yes, in fact,
that's what I
the
was thinking.
slide that we were
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
those were illicit discharge
Okay.
BMPs. So
Okay.
there's a lot of abbreviation that goes on. So
Okay, that's what I was thinking, that that they're just embedded in your matrix, and then when you go back to update or see what works for Monmouth, like you were saying, evaluating the plan.
Right.
I can see how you would put that in there, move it around.
And that matrix addresses mercury, temperature, and
Yeah.
bacteria.
Yeah. No, that was really great, and I appreciate you sending that out in advance. That was really interesting, and I appreciate that information. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank
We'll
you.
be trying to get into the schools. We'll be
Yeah, that's great.
using our own social media, our website as much as we can to provide public education, and then actual, like I said, with construction sites, it'll be face-to-face conversations, pre-construction meetings,
Yeah.
making sure that our expectations are clear with contractors. And that's part of this step towards enforcement. If we keep coming out and the same behaviors occurring, that's where we'll most likely see enforcement from the city standpoint,
Yeah.
not just the general resident that gets caught doing something.
Well, that's great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you
right,
all.
and work with our climate change group and talking about how to preserve more of our water quality, which we know is important. got lots of assets and lots of interested people. So
Yeah, thank
looking
you.
forward to more information. Thanks, Russ. All right, that takes us to, and thank you for coming out tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, just come clear over here in the rain to join us this afternoon. So thank you, Elizabeth. All right, and that takes us to the mayor's report this evening. Of course, I think it's good to reflect back. We've had a busy weekend, particularly with yet another tree lighting on the books. This one was a little wetter than we've had the last few years. And also, I think sparsely attended because there was a football game going on. I think that kept some folks away. So, but it was yet another wonderful event. And I just have to thank Sabra. She got like the greatest picture of the child, the student from Ash Creek Elementary, right before she got to push the plunger.
Oh, that's
Some great work on that, but another good opportunity in our community. And then another day of making spirits bright and having our business community and a lot of lovely folks showing their crafts and the work that they do, maker spaces kind of throughout the community. And a great day for that. It was nice and warm, actually. So another good event put on by our Monmouth Business Association to get the holiday spirit. And our park is lit up and our street trees are lit up. And it's feeling pretty festive out there. So, there are a few other things coming up, I guess, probably in our I'll let Christy talk a little bit more about City Hall move and things like that. So we'll wait for her report on that. For board appointments this evening, I would like your official blessing. Marty served as our staff liaison to the MyNet board. And Christy will be getting up to speed on that. I would like to appoint Christy to that. And then Marty also has been serving on the PATHS board, and that is our Homeless Alliance for Polk County, specific to the House bill implementation pilot. And Marty was serving on that most recently. Christy has time in her schedule for that. So I would like your approval to appoint her to those two boards.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much for the motion and the second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks. So you already got them on your calendar, so here we go. We did mention we have that opening on Planning Commission, and Phyllis, I think we announced that. I can't remember what we put as a deadline. Do you have that information?
I don't, I couldn't find it, and I was checking with Sabra recently and didn't get that from her.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure we really put out a great call on that. So I think we'll extend that a little bit. I'll give you a new deadline, and hopefully, again, we did a great job of getting a lot of new folks to apply for both the Budget Committee and the Planning Commission. So let's try that again. See if we can't get some new folks interested. And we will have that appointment come up at a future meeting. So reports of council representatives of boards and commissions. What else is going on? Councilor Oberst.
Traffic safety met last night. And we had primarily some old business. There's been a little concern about traffic coming in on Falls City highways to Whitman Street a little fast. We have been working with ODOT to put up a radar reader sign. They help. They're not a cure. Some people actually take them as a challenge. We had a request for stop sign ahead on where Winnegar turns to Knox. Turns to Winnegar, turns to Knox. It's a confusing little stretch. And there's a stop sign that people are coming around a corner and all of a sudden they're confronted with a stop sign. Now they will be confronted with a stop sign ahead before they actually get to the stop. So we hope that that will help with that problem.
Do we know why there's a stop sign there to begin
I think because,
with? On the Knox part of it?
yeah, I think it's because the cross street is a more heavily traveled street, isn't it, Russ?
Vinegar comes to a T there.
Do you know why we have that stop sign there?
Make sure we're talking about the same intersection when you come around and you're on Knox.
You're on Knox.
You know, I don't know why there is actually.
Because I've always wondered, because
Because it's always
really hard.
been there.
It's a short row, right?
Other than it would be a long distance without a stop sign, so we would probably get a request for one to try to slow people down.
But that curve really slows you down. I mean,
And I could see where people pulling out of the side street because of the curve of the cross traffic wouldn't see cross traffic coming.
well,
So we're going to stop cross traffic, of course, with the fact that they don't know there's a stop sign there.
yeah, that's
It's an
the
issue.
problem. I mean, it's the, yeah.
So we're refining. This refines that intersection. Madam Mayor.
It's a tough one, and especially if the bushes are overgrown from my friends who live there. It makes it
Councilor
really hard.
Perry at one point suggested maybe we need a few more yellow curbs around at intersections around MES. And we talked about that a little bit. I think that Public Works is open to that idea, but they would also like perhaps going forward some kind of statement of where such treatment is appropriate so that they don't have to paint every yellow curb at every intersection in town. And so perhaps along safe routes to school is an indicator of where it would be appropriate to do that. We have a transportation systems plan update coming. We have a number of folks who have volunteered to serve on some groups that will discuss this plan as it goes forward. There will be a website available to see the work of this group as it goes forward. And the address is very easy, monmouthtsp.com. And for right now, it's mostly blank, but we have had a bunch of cameras around town for traffic count purposes. And some people have noticed and wondered what was up with that. But the nice thing about the traffic, the cameras, where a rubber hose on the road counts cars, the camera also sees and can record conflicts between vehicles and gives you a lot more information about what's actually going on at the intersection. So we're excited about the process going forward. Their first meeting of the first group of that process will be on the 14th at 1. It's all virtual. And I'm sure Russ will have information, or the city website will have information about that. And then, as you all recall, the mayor asked me to look into a transportation commission instead of traffic safety. And that's been working its way slowly but surely through. And I understand that staff had a meeting about that today. And I'm not sure exactly what the outcome of that was, but we'll continue to hear more on that going forward. The only new business, this is also an exciting one. As you know, the crossing at Madrona can be, crossing the highway can be exciting. And we have an RRFB coming up at that intersection. It will be for a new crosswalk on the south leg of the intersection instead of the north leg. It will include not just the flashing beacons, but also improved street lighting so that you can actually see the pedestrians at night. And there will no longer be a turn lane for northbound 99 onto westbound Madrona. However, you can still make that movement. There just won't be a turn lane. You have to make it from the travel lane. It's not a heavily made traffic movement. So we're hoping that doesn't cause folks too much trouble. And then Russ also said, gee whiz, that bike rodeo was good. Let's work on doing that again. So, I think that's it. Russ, did I miss anything? Russ did mention that maybe going forward, we might love to have a local coordinator for the Safe Routes program, somebody who can talk to the city and talk to Safe Routes. Go ahead. Yes.
ETA on that RRFB?
Signing contracts basically this week. So the contracts will be issued this week, and then I'll just say within the next 3 months.
Nice.
Somebody want to repeat that into the microphone?
Within the next 3 months, he's signing contracts in the next week and install within the next 3 months. That is very exciting.
And I will mention that that's just one of 4 RRFBs that we have on the agenda for the next few years. It'll take a little while to get them all, but we also plan one for the crossing at the Roth Center. We plan one for the Church Street crossing at 99, and we plan one for the top of the hill on Main Street. What is that? Heffley.
Oh, yeah.
We had a young person hit there this summer when the setting sun was directly in line with Main Street, and the westbound driver never saw him. It was fortunate that it was not a big pickup or something like that. It was a sedan. And
Yes, the school district crossing guard there will tell you stories.
Yeah.
And that is all.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Tonight I have 2 reports to bring to you. The first is the Parks and Rec Board. The Parks and Recreation Board met at 6 p.m. on November 8th. Unfortunately, I did not make this meeting. I had a work conflict come up at the last minute. But the business that the board dealt with at that meeting was a Monmouth Recreation Park update, just bringing the board up to speed on progress and planning regarding that process. They also talked about improvements and preliminary design review for some of those improvements with Monmouth Recreation Park. They touched on the Main Street Park tree inventory. They had an arborist come out and look at some of the trees that needed some work, assessed what work was needed on each tree. Most of the trees need some level of pruning, but they're generally speaking in fairly good shape. But that will come that work will come after some collaboration with the tree board, and some changes may need to be made along the way. They also discussed, a potential update to the park reservation process. I know that was a hot topic a little bit last summer, and a discussion surrounding creating some policy for events at the skate park. As you may know, we've already had a couple of events at the skate park. It's received a lot of energy, a lot of attention, which is exactly what we want. But just creating a unified vision and policy around how to handle those event requests. And that was a discussion. It's currently in progress. They also discussed a little bit about, pickleball court location. No new news there, just bringing everyone into alignment. I know we've discussed that at length. It's still moving and just pulling everyone together. And also discussed reviewing the recreation grant application process. As you know, we hold those recreation grants open in the late winter to spring each year, and those fund some fantastic activities that occur in public spaces and in our parks throughout the year. And so always trying to refine that process, take learnings from the previous year, and make sure that it's both clear and accessible. So the next meeting is December 13th. And I look forward to bringing you more information back from that meeting. The next report I have for you is the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance meeting that occurred on the 9th of November at 3 p.m. And the bulk of the discussion at that meeting was centered around the pit count, the point-in-time count. As a refresher, this is a count that occurs across the nation each January, and it is an attempt to understand the depth and breadth of homelessness needs throughout our communities. The count is it is a requirement to do the count every other year for unsheltered populations, and every year for sheltered populations. In the past few years, we've done the count 3 times thus far since the founding of the Homeless Alliance. And we had been on a previous cadence to do that unsheltered count every year. This year, however, with some changes in staffing and organizational shifts, we just brought on a new executive director at that entity. We lost some of the brain trust with some of the consultants that had been working with the Homeless Alliance for a number of years, and it's been a dynamic time there. So with that, it was determined that, well, we discussed whether or not we felt we had the bandwidth as an organization to do that unsheltered count this year. There's a little bit of a split down the river, actually. Polk County and the Polk County partners, us, independents, Polk County themselves were, felt that as a county and as a community, we were well poised to move forward and host this count. Marion County was a little bit of a different scenario. Marion County, as you may recall, Marion County took lead in coordinating that count, the county themselves on that side of the river, and they were unwilling to do so this year. So while Polk County was willing to and felt that we had the bandwidth to move forward, the other side of the river, there just wasn't that coordination, that entity that was able to lead the count successfully. Where this led us, we talked about potentially splitting it and just doing it in one area and not doing it in another, but that creates some issues around the data reporting and around how that.
We are our own continuum. It's
Yep.
hard to just get partial data.
We even talked about doing it and just not reporting the data, but then there's a data analysis that's left out. So it was an immensely painful decision not to do the count this year, but that was the ultimate decision not to host the count this year. Polk County themselves will still conduct a community survey, likely in February, potentially March, where they will capture some of the additional questions that were asked this past year about the council. We will still get some level of local data, but it will be different data than we capture through the count. Ultimately, the largest factor in not doing the count was that it would be more detrimental to do the count poorly
But they have more cities than any other county in our state within the county. And so they can't just count part of those cities either. And they really need those resources. They really need the capacity and the bandwidth to stage counts in 20 or however many different cities they have while we're working on Monmouth, Independence, Dallas, Falls City, right? So.
Yeah.
Yep, that is tough, but understandable. So.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you. That concludes my reports tonight.
Other meetings been going on? Yes, Councilor Carey.
Planning Commission meets tomorrow. They have two items on the agenda. One is a plan review for a new construction of Price Lane, and then the other is for a remodel of the old Washington Mutual, whatever bank building down here, remodel of that. So those are two items that are on the agenda, that both of which, are good news items.
Yeah.
That's tomorrow, 7 p.m. online. That's where I'll be.
Hopefully very exciting news, since that is sort of our gateway. It's kind of dilapidated. So. All right, seeing no other board or commission meetings.
Some announcements later.
We'll turn it over to Christy Worster.
Let's see, how many minutes do I have to get to my time for tonight?
You're drawn into that already? You were drawn into that already.
We're way ahead.
Not how it works.
Just a few announcements. A reminder to all of you that we'll be holding our first annual staff appreciation breakfast on Monday morning, starting at 7:30 at the library. We hope that you can all join us as we celebrate the hard work that our staff has contributed to the city this past year, and note some special milestones for other employees that have been with the city for a longer tenure. So please join us for that. Look forward to seeing you all there. Secondly, our City Hall update. Our Assistant City Manager, Kevin Perkins, spent the majority of yesterday for the final punch list walkthrough for City Hall. I mean, there are still things that are not quite complete, but we did take the opportunity to walk through with our architecture firm. We had our civil engineer on site, HVAC experts, looking at those critical components to the facility, and are compiling that list so that our contractor can finish the project for us, with the hopes that we can be moved in by the end of this calendar year. We have pushed back our move-in dates to starting on Friday, December 15th, followed by the following Monday, Tuesday, the 18th and 19th. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to stick with those dates. Of course, the major holdup is still that temporary occupancy and the elevator inspections, and allowing us to occupy that second floor. But we are pushing for temporary occupancy for the first floor. So we'll continue to keep you apprised as more work develops on site. We are still working with the university on their application for the tree removal on campus. They have reduced the number of trees that they anticipate to be removed to 13, which is, you know, better than we had heard before. And along with that application is a request to also do a street closure December 26th through 28th on Monmouth Avenue to allow the safe removal of those trees during that time. On the city manager recruitment realm, you did talk about this last meeting, but we're moving forward with the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments agreement. Our legal counsel has taken a look at that, and so we'll be returning that, and we hope to have someone come and talk with you about the next steps and process at our meeting in January. So we'll keep you updated on that. We don't have any additional business for the second meeting this month, and so the mayor has determined that we will not hold our second meeting of December. So we'll see you back on January 2nd for our next meeting.
Yeah, you may be over there. You're probably over there. We'll let you know.
Well, we hope so.
We hope so.
Let's see. I did receive an email from our county emergency manager today that we are anticipating 3 to 4 additional inches of rain by tomorrow. He does not believe that the Willamette is going to reach full bank, but he did say that the Luckemute will and is expected to crest approximately 2 feet above the flood stage. So just
not unusual for the lake.
information there for all of you. And then finally, the last thing I just wanted to note is community dinner. We will be hosting a community dinner, which is free for anyone in the community on December 25th from 11 to 4. And we'll
Here
be,
in this space.
yes, we'll be sending more information out about that with our Friday notes, but just wanted to give you all advance notice so that you can share that throughout your networks.
Yeah, the Friends of the Senior Center particularly is coordinating some of that. Steve Milligan is accepting donations, volunteer help, and then they hope to just invite the community in for a free meal. So they'll give that a shot. And there are some flyers being prepared for that, and they'll be getting the word out. But it's a great opportunity in our community. We all know the need is there, as evidenced when the Ella Curran Food Bank did their typical Thanksgiving giveaway. They load up some haul trucks and go down to the riverfront and pass out food. Mayor McArdle and I received an email from a volunteer with the food bank who noted that he helped several families who mentioned it was their first time getting food. And most of them said they needed it before, but didn't have transportation and got on the trolley to go down to get, they signed up because they knew they would have a way to carry a significant food donation home.
Oh, that's cool. My heart.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. And that brings us to council comments and announcements. Yes, Councilor Belts.
I've got two. So December 12th, which is next week, the senior board is having their luncheon here. We will be watching a movie, a 55-minute movie called Living Old. And then I will be providing lunch for everybody with the help of Barbara. If anyone is interested in coming to that lunch, let me know. We would love to have other people. February the 28th, write that on your calendar. That is the COG annual dinner. It will be out at Spirit Mountain. They are our sponsor this year. And so I might even get a room for that night, just thinking how fun it would be to be out there. In addition to that, you all should have received or will be receiving the call for nominations for the COG Awards. If you have not received them, you will be getting them soon. Knowing that there's the holidays and all that, they're not due back until January 12th. However, that's a great opportunity for us to, recognize our own and our colleagues, etc. So because I'm on the executive leadership team for the COG, if you have more questions about that, let me know. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. All right. Seeing no other, if I do know this Friday night is the YMCA annual fundraiser event being held back at Green Villa this year. And so does the city have a table? Do we know?
I haven't heard, so I'm not sure. Would you like us to check into one?
Typically do. I don't need one.
I'm going to be there anyway. So.
Yeah, I
won't need
think
one.
several of us go with other groups. But yeah, typically. Yes. Councilman.
Along the line of fundraisers, I want to mention that the West Valley Community Hospital Foundation Board will again this year be sponsoring All In, which is a mock gambling event at the Independence Hotel. We had a great time last year. You come in and use real money to buy a script, and you play real games with real folks who really know what they're doing, playing blackjack and roulette and so on. There's a Texas Hold'em tournament, and it was a great time. It was so jammed that we're actually going to have some spillover into some tents outdoors this year. So this will be coming up on February 23rd, Friday at 6. Should be at 6. I'll remind again as we get closer. But it was a good time. It was a really fun time last year. I recommend it highly.
And speaking of February events, we have established our council goal setting session. And it looks like we'll be holding that in our new City Hall council chambers on that Saturday. So more information about that. It's also a February. All right. Seeing anything else? Anybody want to move to get us out of here?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?